If fishing is something you've loved your entire life, but walking long distances, standing for hours, or carrying all your gear to your favorite fishing spot isn't as easy as it used to be, I want you to watch this video, because a mobility scooter can be a whole lot more than something you use to get the mail, go grocery shopping, or make it to a doctor's appointment. The right mobility scooter can actually help get you back to the water. I'm Sergio with Mobility Direct, and before we get into the scooters, I want you to understand something about me. I've been around the water and fishing pretty much my entire life. I grew up fishing with my dad. In fact, my dad and I even built our own fishing boat together, and now that I'm older and have a family of my own, fishing is still one of my favorite ways to spend time and make memories with the people I care about. I live in Southwest Florida, so I'm fortunate enough to be surrounded by some incredible fishing. I take friends and family out on the water all the time, and one of my favorite places to fish is around the 10,000 Islands near Marco Island. If you've ever fished Southwest Florida, you know exactly why. You've got miles and miles of incredible inshore fishing, mangrove shorelines, islands, backwaters, and some absolutely beautiful places to explore. But I don't always fish from a boat. Sometimes I want to fish a canal, sometimes it's a lake or a pond, sometimes it's a dock or a pier, and sometimes getting to the fish means getting off the pavement and crossing grass, dirt, gravel, roots, brush, and some pretty nasty terrain. That's where mobility scooters completely changed the game for me. Over the years, I've discovered that a good outdoor mobility scooter can be one of the most useful fishing vehicles you can own. And I don't say that as somebody who occasionally goes fishing for a YouTube video. I actually fish. I've taken these scooters out with my friends and family, loaded them up with rods, tackle, bait, buckets, and everything else we need, and used them to reach fishing spots that would be a whole lot harder for me to access on foot. And once I get there, I've already got a comfortable chair to fish from. That's what we're going to show you today. I'm going to show you how I use mobility scooters for fishing, what features I think actually matter when choosing one, and why the right scooter could help you get back to doing something you thought you might have to give up. And make sure you stay with me because I've got some awesome footage to show you. I've taken the Baja Wrangler 2 through some seriously rough terrain to reach canals and ponds. I've gone fishing with the Afikim S4 Solar, which gives me a canopy for shade, and a solar panel that provides supplementary charging while I'm outside. I've loaded up the Golden Eagle HD with fishing equipment and used accessories to carry my fishing poles. And I've gone on fishing adventures with my good friend Uncle Chuck, where we loaded our BuzzAround scooters with rods and tackle and traveled from fishing hole to fishing hole looking for somewhere the fish were biting. And I'll warn you right now, just because you go fishing doesn't mean you're going catching. We've had days where we didn't catch a thing. And I've also had a day where I did catch a nice bass, only to have a Florida alligator decide that apparently I caught his lunch. I'll show you what happened later in the video. Now before we get into all of this, I want to make one thing very clear. If you're only fishing from a smooth paved pier, you probably don't need one of the big off-road scooters you're going to see me using in this video. But that's not normally how I fish. When I'm fishing banks, lakes, canals, and ponds, I want power. I want large tires. I want good suspension. I want stability. And most importantly, I want plenty of ground clearance. Because the last thing I want is to get halfway to a fishing hole and discover that my scooter can't handle the terrain in front of me. And if you're currently researching a mobility scooter so you can get back to fishing or doing other outdoor activities, make sure you request a copy of our free Mobility Direct product catalog. Just visit mobilitydirect.com and click the green free catalog button at the top of the page, or call the number at the bottom of your screen and we'll help you request one. And if you're not sure what kind of scooter you need, that's okay. Because next, I'm going to show you exactly what I look for in a mobility scooter when I know I'm taking it fishing, and why getting to the water is only half of what makes these machines so useful. Now let's talk about what actually makes a mobility scooter good for fishing, because for me, the priorities are very different from somebody who's primarily using a scooter indoors or on perfectly smooth sidewalks. The first thing I'm looking for is ground clearance. When you're fishing from the bank of a lake or canal, the terrain usually isn't perfectly flat. You've got roots, rocks, ruts, sticks, uneven grass, changes in elevation, and all kinds of obstacles underneath you. If your scooter sits too low to the ground, it doesn't matter how powerful the motor is, you can get hung up before you ever reach your fishing spot. That's one reason I love scooters like my Baja Wrangler 2. This thing is built for outdoor use. I've taken it through some ridiculous terrain over the years, and when I'm trying to reach a canal or pond that's off the beaten path, that's exactly the kind of machine I want underneath me. The next thing I'm looking at is the tires. For serious outdoor use, I want big, wide tires that can roll over obstacles and provide better traction on uneven terrain. And personally, I really like pneumatic tires for this type of riding. Combine those larger tires with a good suspension system, and you've got a scooter that's much better suited for getting across rough ground comfortably. And comfort matters? Remember, you're not necessarily riding for 10 minutes and getting off. You might ride to the water, fish for an hour, move to another spot, fish some more, and spend half the day sitting on that scooter. Which brings me to one of my favorite things about fishing with these machines. Your mobility scooter becomes your fishing chair. On scooters with a swivel captain seat, I can get into position near the water, rotate my seat toward the fishing spot, lock it into place, and start casting. I've done exactly that with the BuzzAround scooters while fishing with my buddy Uncle Chuck. We'd load up our equipment, ride from one fishing hole to another, find a good spot, turn the seats toward the water, and start fishing. And that's a huge advantage if standing for long periods of time is difficult for you. You don't have to carry a separate chair down to the water. You don't have to sit on an upside-down bucket. You've already brought a comfortable seat with you. And here's something else fishermen will appreciate. The scooter can carry a lot of the stuff that you would normally have to carry. Fishing rods, tackle, bait, buckets, drinks, a cooler, a backpack, whatever you're bringing with you. Depending on the scooter, you can have a front basket, a rear basket, accessory holders, or even a hitch receiver that opens up additional storage possibilities. On the Golden Eagle HD, for example, I've used a holder mounted behind the seat to carry my fishing poles. I've loaded up my bait and tackle, driven to the water, and actually gone fishing with everything right there on the scooter. I've even used my Baja Wrangler 2 to pull a fishing cart. And when you think about it, that's when the scooter starts becoming less like a traditional mobility device and more like your personal fishing rig. It carries you. It carries your equipment. It gives you somewhere comfortable to sit. And when the fish aren't biting, you turn the key and move to another spot. That's a bigger deal than it sounds. Anybody who does a lot of bank fishing knows that sometimes finding fish means covering ground. You make a few casts, nothing happens, so you walk farther down the bank, try another spot, then another, then another. For somebody who has difficulty walking long distances, that can be the difference between actually fishing the way you want to fish and being stuck wherever you happen to start. With a mobility scooter, I can conserve my energy and move from fishing hole to fishing hole without worrying about how far I'm getting from my vehicle. And I want to emphasize that last part. It's not just about whether you can make it to the fishing spot. After you've been outside for 3 or 4 hours, you still have to make it back. That's something people don't always think about until they're already exhausted, and you don't have to be completely unable to walk for this to make sense. Maybe you walk around your house just fine. Maybe you can go into a restaurant without a mobility device. Maybe you don't even think of yourself as somebody who needs a scooter, but carrying fishing rods, tackle, bait, and a cooler several hundred yards across uneven ground is a completely different situation. There's nothing wrong with conserving that energy for the reason you came out there in the first place, to fish. And there's one more decision I think fishermen need to consider when choosing a scooter for outdoor use. 3 wheels versus 4, because I've fished with both. Once the terrain starts getting rough, there's one configuration I personally prefer. When I'm fishing around lakes, canals, ponds, and uneven banks, I personally prefer a 4-wheel scooter. 3-wheel scooters absolutely have advantages. They usually have a tighter turning radius, and depending on the design, they can give you more room around your feet. That's great when you're navigating tighter spaces, but when I leave the pavement and start dealing with uneven grass, ruts, roots, gravel, or slopes, stability becomes much more important to me. That's where I prefer having 4 wheels underneath me. Now that doesn't mean a 3-wheel scooter can't go fishing. Uncle Chuck and I actually proved that when we took the BuzzAround EX and BuzzAround LX out on one of our fishing adventures. We loaded the scooters up with fishing rods, tackle, baskets, and everything we needed, and took them across grass, gravel, and some moderately rough terrain while moving from one fishing spot to another. And they did surprisingly well. But here's the important distinction. If I already owned one of those scooters and wanted to take it fishing somewhere that wasn't too rough, absolutely. But if somebody called me today and said, Sergio, I'm buying a mobility scooter specifically because I want to go fishing around lakes and canals, I'd point them towards something much more capable off-road. I'd rather have more ground clearance, more traction, bigger tires, better suspension, and more power than I think I'm going to need. Because conditions can change quickly when you're outdoors. Grass gets wet, dirt turns into mud, you find a rut you didn't see, a tree root is sticking out of the ground, or you find the perfect fishing spot and realize there's 200 yards of rough terrain between you and the water. That's when having the right scooter really matters. And the Baja Wrangler 2 is probably the best example I can give you from my own experience. I've taken that scooter through some ridiculous terrain. I've driven it through deep grass and brush to reach canals and ponds, and I've even pulled a fishing cart behind it. When I'm going somewhere that I know is going to be rough, that's the type of scooter I want. But power and off-road capability aren't everything. Think about how long you're going to be outside. If you're fishing in Florida, shade can become a pretty big deal. That's one thing I really enjoyed about fishing with the Afikim S4 Solar. You've got this large canopy over your head providing shade, and there's a solar panel integrated into the canopy that provides supplementary charging while you're outside. Now, I want to be clear about that. The solar panel doesn't replace your normal battery charger. You're still going to plug the scooter in and charge it normally, but when you're spending hours outside fishing, having some supplemental solar charging is a pretty cool feature. And that Afikim also demonstrates something else I really like for fishing. A big, comfortable captain's seat. If I'm going to spend several hours sitting there waiting for something to bite, I want to be comfortable. That's why I don't think you should choose a fishing scooter based on one specification. You need to look at the complete package: ground clearance, tires, suspension, power, range, stability, seat comfort, storage, and how you're actually going to transport the scooter to your fishing spot. Because there's one downside to these big outdoor scooters that we need to talk about. They're big, they're heavy, and most of them aren't something you're going to casually pick up and throw into the trunk of a car. Depending on the scooter, you may need a truck, trailer, vehicle lift, ramp, or another transportation solution. That's something our team can help you figure out before you buy anything. If you're not sure, call the number at the bottom of your screen and talk to one of our non-commissioned mobility experts. Tell them you're buying a scooter for fishing, tell them what kind of vehicle you drive, tell them where you fish and what the terrain looks like. Tell them whether you're dealing with paved piers, grass, gravel, dirt, canal banks, or rough trails. Those details can completely change which scooter makes sense for you. And if you've got a question right now, put it in the comments below. We respond to questions in our YouTube comments within 1 business day, so don't be afraid to ask. While you're down there, make sure you're subscribed too. We randomly select people who subscribe and comment on our videos to receive free mobility equipment, so it costs you nothing to participate, and you never know when you might be the person we surprise next. Now, I want to get away from specifications for a minute, because there's a reason fishing has remained such a big part of my life. And I think anybody who's spent years fishing with their father, their kids, their grandkids, or their closest friends is going to understand exactly what I'm talking about. Fishing has always been about more than catching fish for me. Like I mentioned earlier, I grew up fishing with my dad. We even built our own fishing boat together. Those are memories I'll have for the rest of my life, and today, I still love getting out on the water with my friends and family. That's really what fishing is about. It's spending time together, it's getting outside, it's telling stories, it's teaching your kids or grandkids how to tie a knot or bait a hook. And sometimes it's sitting there for 3 hours without catching a single thing and still having an awesome day. And that's why I want fishermen to think about mobility scooters a little differently. If walking has become difficult, don't immediately assume that means you have to stop doing the things you've always loved. The right mobility scooter can potentially help you get back to them. And maybe you're watching this thinking, okay, Sergio, but which one of these scooters should I actually buy? That's why we make the videos we make. We've done extremely detailed, in-depth reviews of the Baja Wrangler 2, the Afikim S4, the Golden Eagle HD, and the BuzzAround scooters you've seen throughout this video. We don't just sit in a showroom and read specifications off a brochure. We take these products outside, we drive them, we test them, we work on them, we push them hard, and in many cases, we use them in our own lives. So if one of the scooters you've seen today caught your attention, check the description below We'll put links to our in-depth review videos so you can learn about the specifications, features, pros and cons, transportation considerations, and everything else you should know before deciding whether that particular scooter is right for you. And there's another reason supporting our channel and Mobility Direct means so much to us. Giving back has become a huge part of our mission. Part of every sale at Mobility Direct helps us continue providing mobility equipment to people in need. We've surprised people with mobility scooters and power wheelchairs, helped people regain some of their independence, and documented many of those stories right here on our YouTube channel. So when you choose to shop with Mobility Direct, you're not just supporting our business, you're helping us continue that mission. And even if you're not buying anything, you can still help us. Subscribe to the channel, share our videos, send this video to somebody who used to love fishing but doesn't get out there as much anymore. You never know who might see this and realize, maybe I don't have to give that up yet. And speaking of getting back outside, you guys know I like doing some pretty ridiculous things with my Baja Wrangler too. We've taken it through mud, grass, trails, hills, and some seriously rough terrain. But our next adventure might be one of the craziest yet. We waited until the sun went down, took the Baja Wrangler 2 out to a nature trail in the Everglades, and went looking for Bigfoot. That's right. We took an off-road mobility scooter into the Everglades after dark to see what we could find, and trust me, driving through a nature trail in the Everglades is a completely different experience when you can't see what's waiting around the next corner. We'll give you a quick sneak peek right now. If you want to see what happened, make sure you're subscribed and have notifications enabled. We're going to put that video on the screen at the end so you can watch the entire adventure next. But before we go looking for Bigfoot, there's one fishing story I promised I'd show you. Remember that base I told you about earlier? Well, I caught the fish.
There he goes. All right, we got fish on. Let's see if this gator is gonna try and steal it from me though, because he looks hungry. Uh-oh, he's coming. He's coming. Oh.
The problem was,
something
else decided it wanted my fish a whole lot more than I did. And this is about as Florida as fishing gets.
Oh! He's got my fish! Give me the fish! Oh! Oh God, that was an easy meal for you.
I was out fishing with my Baja Wrangler 2, made my cast and ended up hooking into a nice base. Everything was going great until one of the locals decided he wanted my fish. And by local, I mean a Florida alligator. This alligator came over and decided that apparently I wasn't fishing for myself anymore. I was catching his lunch. Now that is Florida fishing. And as funny as that moment was, look at where I was when it happened. I wasn't sitting next to a parking lot on a perfectly paved fishing pier. I was outside, exploring, fishing around a canal, and using an off-road mobility scooter to get me and my equipment where I wanted to go. That's the entire point of this video. A mobility scooter doesn't have to represent the things you can no longer do. It can represent the things you can still do. And I think that's especially important for fishermen to hear. Maybe you've been fishing for 30, 40, or 50 years. Maybe you grew up fishing with your dad like I did. Maybe you've got a son, daughter, grandson, granddaughter, or close friend who's always asking you to go fishing, but lately you've been saying no. Not because you stopped loving fishing, because getting to the water became difficult. Maybe your knees can't handle the walk anymore. Maybe your back doesn't appreciate carrying a tackle box and cooler several hundred yards. Maybe you can get down to your favorite fishing spot, but you're worried about having enough energy to get back. Or maybe standing there casting for several hours simply isn't realistic anymore. That's exactly why I made this video. You don't necessarily have to give up the fishing pole, you might just need to change how you get to the water. And that's what mobility means to me. It's not about sitting around thinking about everything you can't do. It's about finding another way to keep doing the things that make life enjoyable. For me, that's spending time outdoors, it's being on the water, it's fishing with friends and family, it's making memories, and sometimes it's apparently providing lunch for an alligator. Now, if this video has you thinking about getting an outdoor mobility scooter, don't just buy the first one you find online. Think about where you're actually going to use it. Look at the terrain. Think about how you're transporting it. Consider the ground clearance, tires, suspension, stability, range, seating, and storage, and then choose the machine that fits your fishing. If you're still unsure, call our team at Mobility Direct. Our sales experts are non-commissioned, and we'd much rather help you find the right scooter than sell you the wrong one. And remember, we've put links in the description to our in-depth reviews of the scooters you've seen throughout this video. Those reviews will give you a much deeper look at each model before you make a decision. Most importantly, don't stop making memories just because getting around isn't as easy as it used to be. Find another way to get there, get outside, call your fishing buddy, grab your rods, and go fishing. I'm Sergio with Mobility Direct, and thank you for supporting our channel, our business, and our mission to give back. And we're definitely not done exploring. Because remember that Baja Wrangler 2 you watched me take fishing? We're taking that same off-road scooter somewhere completely different next. After dark, on a nature trail in the Everglades, looking for Bigfoot. We're putting that video on your screen right now. Click it and come along with us. Because if we can use a mobility scooter to go looking for Bigfoot in the Everglades at night, your favorite fishing hole probably isn't out of reach either.